How y'all doing? Hopefully, very well. Check this out. America, right? What is America? What is America to you? We're going to be talking about what America is comprised of. What are the two main groups that exist that make up America? Well, you've got the people, you and me, your neighbor, your grandma, that sort of thing. You've got the government, right? The government being there, being the extension of the people to kind of reach out and keep law and order in the community, right? To secure our way of life as Americans, right? Well, people, what is that comprised of? Family, friends, community, your community leaders, right? Religious sector, charities. You've got producers. That's big, right? All your essential needs, basic needs of survival, your food, water supply, and all this stuff being, not that we can't do it on our own, but what a drag that would be, huh, these days, right? They make life easy for us, easy to survive. You've got your employers, which give you the opportunity to work, to make a living for yourself, right? Provide for your children. And you've got the militia, which basically protects this natural order. This is basically broken down to the community level, right? The militia is there to ensure that there's no invasion. In the instance we were attacked, mostly it's to stop an oppressive government that maybe has gone rogue and subject to the corruption of power. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. What is the government comprised of? Bunch of agencies, a lot. It grows every year. How many three-letter agencies are created? You've got the elected representatives, which are from the community. You vote for them to be your voice, right? Hopefully you're getting somebody that's going to, well, for one, they take note of the Constitution and to the people, right? And swear to God that they're going to do the right thing and that they're going to protect the American way of life. So you hope that would be enough to keep these people straight. You've got regulators, which kind of falls in with these agencies, but they go out and tell you whether you can, how to operate your business, whether your product is safe or not. That kind of falls in line with the idea of trading safety and security for liberty, right, or vice versa. It doesn't always work well. It sounds great on paper, easy to sell, but usually there's a malice intent behind that. You've got your tax-funded government jobs, your DMV, your post office, those types of things, right? And I don't know about you guys, side note, everybody at the DMV, they always seem miserable. Don't take those jobs. And then you've got the military, which are going to be your boys that are, the last several generations going overseas and spreading democracy is what we're told. Anyways, that's America. That's the two entities that exist that make up this nation, right, that we live in. What keeps these two in check, the people and the government? What keeps them from fighting each other, from completely going rogue? It prevents chaos and it keeps some type of order. How do we do that? Right? Well, we've got a constitution, right? It's a framework of government, right? A government of, by, and for the people. Right? It's a safeguard against tyranny because this is something that we, the people, came up with. We decided this is what's going to work. We created these positions, this system of government, to be for the people, to protect the people. Knowing that power corrupts, a system of checks and balances we're putting in place, right? To hopefully mitigate that. You've got the Declaration of Independence. What do you do on July 4th? Is that a day of hot dogs and hamburgers and maybe some fireworks if you're in a county where you can see those? Or does it mean much more? I suggest you check out the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such forms as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than the right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And it goes on. That's the first half. Anyways, what is that? That's a line in the sand. You're telling what they told government, what they told the biggest world superpower at the time was, we are done. We are sovereign from your tyranny. Your tyranny holds no place here anymore. Here we go. It's a warning to those that wish to oppress. A declaration of sovereignty. So what's happened? What's happened to where, we're all starting to notice that, our freedoms are, a real freedom, a real warrior, his first and last breath are that of a free man. You can't take away someone's freedom. You have to give it up, right? The problem is the life expectancy of somebody that decides to live free is usually far less than one that will, crawl on his knees. So what's happened to where it's made it so hard to live free, where you're punished and persecuted? Well, this document here, the Constitution, that kept this all in order, which was a restraint on government, right? It limited it. Our founders understood we needed some form of government, right? For justice, right? To keep some kind of order. We are a nation of laws. Knowing that, they also knew that power corrupts, so they created this whole framework which would provide the order the people needed, but also restrict the government from growing too big, right? So what's happened? Well, you can go down the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. Look at your First Amendment. What's happening? You have to get a permit. Right? So the right to go out into the street and protest the government for a redress of grievances. At what point, or where does it say in the First Amendment that that's contingent on you getting a permit from the county, right? And then having maybe some noise, a decibel machine to make sure you're not too loud, whatever. Where does it say you need a permit? I thought that was a God-given right. But what happened? The permit was introduced. We accepted it. We've lived that way for a long time. And guess what? It's just kind of common now. You just go get it, and the police will enforce it. If the county says they can't have that protest, the police will come out and look at you and say, well, you should have got the permit, even though they took an oath of the Constitution too. What I'm getting at is when you start letting them take little at a time, the exact moment that you ask for permission for one of these rights, they're no longer your God-given rights, at least defined in law. They are government privileges. Look at your Second Amendment. Look at California. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. You should be able, unless you're entering a private business, which has every right to tell you, we don't want firearms in here. I don't know why they would, but regardless, what I'm getting at, you're walking down a tax-paid. It's a public street. It's public property. They have zero rights. to tell you that you cannot bear arms. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody just go out and start bearing arms. I mean, I don't see the problem with it. We'd probably have a lot less violent crime. Regardless, we have to ask for a permit. Concealed carry, right? We don't have that right. That right's gone, right? When you have to protest with fake guns and whatnot, you don't give up your rights. When you give up your rights, this entity here, the government, has absolute control over you. What are they pushing now? This basic income or universal income? Why do you think that is? They've taken your rights. Well, we've given them up, rather, with almost no opposition, and which is sad that we've come to this. But they want to now control your flow of income. They want to be there to give you the money. They're basically feeding you. You're basically a pet. Here's some scraps. Bad dog, you didn't do what I wanted. No more scraps. What does that do? That desperation is gonna, for most men at least, it's going to cause submission. A lot of men are going to submit to this. Good men, godly men. They're not going to be willing to put up the fight. And this culture of submission to tyranny is, we bred that. You know how we bred that? By not being there for our children, by giving our children to the state to be raised, educated, dumbed down, but they call it education. We've been doing this for generations, more and more and more. And we have an entire generation of youth right now that has almost zero influence from their parents, and absolute influence from their Marxist teachers. They've been poisoned. We're to blame for that. Government is doing exactly what it does in nature. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. We've fallen from God. We've gotten lazy. We've become perverted in the mind. And we've given this nation up. And our only hope is, if we admit that, come back to reality and understand we got to get back to God. And by God, we'll have our home again. Thank you, guys.